Oh, hello. This is Colin. Just wanted to apologize for yesterday. Not sure what came over me. Well, but today I wanted to talk about tea in China, going all the way back to the Song Dynasty about 1,000 years ago or so. Now, many people may not realize it, but tea at the time was considered a military strategic asset. Let me explain. So, the Song Dynasty was a prosperous time for China. The economy was growing, agriculture was booming, everything seemed to be going quite well. Except, of course, the perennial problem with being Chinese is that the better you do, the more the people up north on their horses notice, and they want your stuff. Now, the problem with fighting horse tribes is that you may have masses of infantry, but that doesn't mean anything if the horsemen just ride away and shoot their arrows at you and keep you out of range. So about the only really good way to defeat a horse warrior is to have horses yourselves. I mean, they tried the walls. The walls didn't work out too good. Eventually, they would invent gunpowder weapons and cannon, but still, it really isn't until the repeating rifle that the horse is pretty much banned from the battlefield. So, China was not a good horse raising country for various reasons. So the Chinese looked to particularly Tibet for horses. Tibet being famous for the quality of their horses. So they established the Chamandao, the horse tea road to Tibet that went through some very rugged mountainous countryside from Yunnan province up to Tibet. Now the road would have been quite perilous, and the tea exported, tea and salt were the main exports along this road, and it would have been carried by horse or humans. Porters were expected to carry sometimes as much as their own body weight in tea across poor roads over rugged terrain, and they would take the tea and the salt, two things necessary for life, to Tibet to trade for horses. Now, it may seem a little frivolous for the Tibetans to trade perfectly good horses for tea, but you've got to keep in mind that Tibet is on a high mountain plain. There's not a lot of agriculture. The diet is heavily dependent on meat and dairy products. And I won't bore you with the details, but drinking tea actually gives you a lot of nutrients that the Tibetans would have lacked otherwise. So this is one reason why the Tibetans were drinking tea morning, noon, and night. And even when the Chinese, I think it was under the Ming, switched over to loose leaf green tea, the Tibetans insisted on brick tea, which they drink to this day. It's easier to transport, it's easier to storage, it lasts longer. And it's also kind of interesting that most of the black tea in China was actually made for export. And it makes me think that perhaps in China, black tea got this reputation as being tea for foreigners, which is why the Chinese prefer green tea almost exclusively. So, of course, the Chinese were so intent, they actually set up a ministry, a government bureaucracy where one man would be in charge of getting horses for tea. But, of course, it didn't actually work out all that well for them. As we all know, the Song were conquered by the Mongols, who went around the wall of China, or at least there were some walls in China. It wasn't what we think of as the Great Wall of China, which is the Ming. Now they went around the walls and they conquered China, and they razed the cities and they slaughtered the people, and generally made I mean, they established a peace eventually that encouraged trade, but it took a while to recover from the damage that they did initially. And it wasn't until the Ming, an actual Chinese dynasty that took over afterward, that the trade with Tibet of horses for tea was resumed. Anyway, I bet you didn't know that tea was such an important military asset. Cheers.